Hi there. This is Doug O'Brien. Welcome to the podcast. Today's podcast is going to be about motivation. What motivates you? And is it really okay to compare yourself to other people? Is that good, or should you just be comparing yourself to yourself? Is it intrinsic or extrinsic motivation? What's better? Is it better? We're going to discuss that. See you in just a minute. You are listening to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast, a show devoted to uncovering the systems and the secrets that set the best apart, where you learn how to take your coaching clients to the next level, while you grow the coaching practice of your dreams. So sit back and relax, or sit up and get excited. Either way, you might want to pay attention. This could be important. Yes, welcome back. So yes, we're talking about motivation. What motivates you? I hear a lot about this kind of thing because people want to be positive. We want to think about what we think positively. The law of attraction idea is that if you have positive intention and a positive vision and go towards this with positivity, speak only in positive terms, everything's going to work out just fine. Probably, maybe, who knows? But I'm not convinced that's always true for everybody. And what we're going to be talking about today is what actually works for you. What we need to find is the trigger, the prod, the little poke in the behind that gets you going. What is it that's actually going to get you engaged? And sometimes it's not so pretty. I'm going to tell you some stories about clients that I've had over the years. I'm going to tell you some stories about Milton Erickson today. We're going to look about how these Milton Ericksonian hypnosis type of ways of approaching things can be really, really useful in coaching. This is called the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And, that title came out of the idea that I had a number of years ago, that there were some skills that are essential in coaching that aren't necessarily taught in some coaching programs. They are NLP skills, they're Ericksonian hypnosis skills, they're sleight of mouth skills, they're skills that come from that world of NLP hypnosis that aren't necessarily going to be in everybody's coaching practice. Those are essential skills. And some of them are, I think, pretty subtle, coming from the world of Milton Erickson and Ericksonian hypnosis. So we're going to be talking a little bit about those skills today. And one of the major ones that I think we've talked about before in some previous podcasts is the idea that in Ericksonian hypnosis, there's a concept that human beings can operate from a both and logic base. That is kind of unusual. In fact, sometimes when I've taught it to my neo-Ericksonian hypnosis trainings, people get a little stuck on this whole notion. It stymies them because it's illogical from a conscious mind's perspective. The conscious mind thinks that things are either good or they're bad. It's a kind of digital logic base. Things are good or they're bad. They're black or they're white. They're up or they're down. They're off or they're on. They can't be off and on. They're off or they're on. One or the other. Take your pick. You got to choose. It's one or the other. Ericksonian hypnosis says that, your other than conscious mind, or unconscious mind, as Erickson would put it, is totally open to a both and awareness, both and logic base. Things can be both good and bad, black and white, up and down, off and on, in and out, all at the same time. So you can have both at the same time. And that's a really good place to have a come from. It's a good place to be thinking about a lot when it comes to certain things that you want to be motivated about. It's going to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that and both at the same time. So we're going to be talking about that today too. One of the ways I think that sometimes people get motivated is by comparing themselves with others. And if you've ever had any siblings, you know what I'm talking about. Your brother is so good. Why don't you be more like your brother? Or your sister gets such good grades. Why don't you get good grades like your sister? Kind of thing. If you've had siblings ever, you know what I'm talking about. Or just if you know people. The kid that gets the best scores, best grades in school is like, why can't you be more like Johnny? Oh, he did really well. How come you didn't do really well? Or, all that kind of comparing yourself with other stuff, keeping up with the Joneses, if you will. That's fine, actually, if that motivates you. It is. It's fine if that motivates you. If you want to get better in life, and by doing so, you have a frenemy, a friend of yours who's, he kind of gets under your skin a little bit sometimes, but it gets you going. I better get going because I'm going to keep up with that Jones guy. If that's what gets you going and motivates you to do better in your life, embrace it. I think I might have told you in a previous podcast experience I had once where I went to Oslo, Norway. My wife had a gig there. She was speaking at a teaching artists conference, international teaching artists conference there. And so I tagged along. And somewhere along the line, we went to the Henrik Ibsen Museum. Henrik Ibsen, as you undoubtedly know, is a playwright. He is, in fact, I didn't know this until then, but he is the most produced playwright in the world after Shakespeare. Shakespeare is the only playwright has had more of his productions produced than Henrik Ibsen. Henrik Ibsen wrote things like The Doll's House and other things. Hedda Gabler, Three Women, I think it is called. Three Sisters, Three Women? I'm not sure. Anyway, we went to his house. The Henrik Ibsen Museum was basically his apartment in Oslo where he lived for the last 10, 12 years of his life. And, basically it's an apartment. It's a domicile. It's a place to live. It's where he lived. And you go there and it's like you're walking into his house. They've pretty much kept it the way that it was on the day he died. And what's interesting about it is everything's open and accessible, except for the bathroom that's, you can look in. There's a little stanchion in the way so you can't walk through. And the office where he worked is got a plexiglass barrier in front of it. So you can look in, but you can't even breathe into the room. It's stopped off. But you can look in. You can look in and pretty much see everything. And what I noticed when I looked in, and I took a picture of this, so if I was better prepared, I'd have been able to bring it up to the slide. I have a photograph of a portrait, it's like a 6 foot tall, almost like real life sized portrait that was hanging on the wall in Henrik Ibsen's suite of his office where he wrote his works of August Strindberg. It's this big painting. So August Strindberg standing full length, picture of him, and he's standing there looking like me. I think I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly. I think he had red eyes. I'm not sure about that, but he looked kind of like, not very nice. And it's hanging in his wall here. And then the docent there, the guide to this museum, told us that August Strindberg was Henrik Ibsen's mortal enemy. That's the phrase they used, mortal enemy. They didn't like each other at all. August Strindberg was a playwright from Sweden. We were in Oslo, Norway. So these two guys hated each other's plays. The only time they ever wrote anything about each other, it was like a review of each other's plays for the local newspaper. It's like, oh, that play is the worst thing ever. I thought he was bad, but this one's the worst. They would just destroy each other. And then, so why do you think he would have a portrait like that on his wall? Why would he have he commissioned this painting. Why would he have this painting painted of his mortal enemy hanging on his wall in his office that he would see every day? And the answer, as you probably have surmised by now, is that it was motivating for him. It was motivating for him. So this portrait of August Strindberg is like staring over his shoulder. So it was behind him as he sat at his writing desk, as if Strindberg could be looking over his shoulder and seeing what he was writing, and Ibsen's going like, "I'll get you," It's like that motivated him. Why not? If it works, look what happened. He might have not been writing out of a place of joy and wow, isn't it lovely to create great plays for humanity. But he wrote great plays for humanity in spite of the fact that he might not have been feeling so good inside. You know, he was mad half the time. But anger can be a great motivator, can't it? It can be a great motivator. It's like fire. It can be a great thing. Fire cooks your meals, heats your home. It's a great thing to have fire. Also can burn down your house. So you want to be careful with it. Anger can get out of hand, can't it? And it can be destructive. So in the right dosage, it's a really, really good thing. So what motivates you? I once had a piano student. I taught piano lessons for many years to little kids at the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music, and also at Berkeley Carroll School in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And also had private students that would come to the house. And I remember this one little girl came to the house, and sometimes she was really great. She was maybe my best student. She was really good. And other weeks she'd come and she wasn't prepared, and it wasn't very good. And so one time, after she wasn't particularly prepared, I asked her, I said, is there ever a time that you have homework to do and you don't do it, and then your mother says something to you that gets you to do your homework? And ever in a time like that? She says, oh yeah, definitely. I said, well, what is it that your mom says to you? She says, my mother says, if you don't do your homework, I'm gonna kill you. I was a little shocked. But I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So at the end of the lesson that day, I said to her, now look, you're great. When you practice, you're a very, very good student. And I think you should definitely practice because you got good talent. You should make it better. You should grow your talent. That's a very good thing. So I want you to practice every day, and at least for 5 minutes. I told her about the ease thing, 5 minutes. Or if you can't do 5 minutes, do 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, that sort of thing. And then I said, and if you don't practice, I'm going to kill you. And I tried to use the exact same tonality that she had used, earlier. And as much as I was shocked when she said it to me, she was shocked when I said it to her. She was like, but I kept a straight face, and she like walked out of there with like a little disturbed. But guess what? She came back super prepared the next week. And so it became a standard way I finished the lesson with her. You've probably heard of her. She's, a concert soloist now. She's played many times at Carnegie Hall. No, I don't know, but I lost track of her. I don't know what happened to her. But but she was really good for those few years at Berkeley Carroll School. So you need to find what motivates you. If it is a positive thing, like I want to create joy for the world, then great, do that. Go for it, by all means. If it's because I want to be better than this mortal enemy of mine, get a portrait painted, put it up in your room. Do it. I actually did something like that with my office in Manhattan for a while. I had a picture of somebody that I didn't particularly like, and I framed it, put it on my wall. There are a few people that could verify that story. It's true. But then there are other people who didn't know why I had this picture of this particular person on my wall, and I didn't tell them why it was there because they knew him too. So it was just my little secret. But it was motivational. So what motivates you? When I used to run marathons, I had a goal. I used to run marathons because I had a goal that I wanted to qualify for Boston. My goal was to qualify for the Boston Marathon by running another marathon fast enough to meet their qualification standards. So that was a pretty high bar to meet. It took me years. It took me many years. I ran 15, or completed. I completed 15 marathons before I finally ran one of them fast enough to qualify for Boston. I ran Boston the next year and then retired from marathon running. It's hard. It takes a lot of time. So I accomplished my goal and I was like, cool, done. I still run, but not marathons. But it was great. It was a really great thing. And sometimes when I was running marathons, I would compare myself to other people. When I run an actual marathon, I would say to myself, I had an ease idea thing for how fast I wanted to go. My extraordinary goal was to run fast enough to qualify for Boston. That was my extraordinary goal. My stretch goal would be to run it a PR, a personal record faster than I'd run a previous marathon. Even if it wasn't quite up to the Boston Marathon standards, it was still my best. My acceptable level was to, run it in that neighborhood, to finish it feeling good and, at a competitive level. And my easy level was just to finish it at all. Get to the starting line and one way or the other, get to the finish line. That was my easy level, which isn't so easy, really. It's not easy to run a marathon on any level, but it was easy compared to these other levels, right? So that's how I ran these marathons. During the marathon, I would also think about people that were around me. Like there was one time I was running the New York City Marathon, and there was a guy in a Gumby outfit. He was head to toe. He was Gumby. I don't know if you know who Gumby was, but he was a cartoon character. So if you don't know, Google it. And if you do know, then you can imagine why I was like, I'm not going to let that guy pass me. I wouldn't let him. He was starting to somewhere around mile 24. There's 26.2 miles in a marathon. Somewhere between 23 and 24, this Gumby person starts passing me. It was like, no, not Gumby. Not today. And so I would keep up with the Gumby. And I finally did thank God I beat Gumby to the finish line. But it helped me not slow down at mile 23, 24 when I was like hitting the wall, So it's good to have that sort of competition. It doesn't really matter. It's a funny story. I tell it sometimes, but I didn't really care, but I told myself I did. You tell yourself to do these things because it is going to be motivational, get you moving, get you going. So what motivates you? That's the question you need to ask. Answer you need to find is what motivates you. And sometimes if it is comparing yourself to other people, then compare yourself to other people. But don't take it too seriously. It's nice to know you can have both at the same time, right? That's where that comes in. You can compare yourself to others, and you can also not compare yourself to others. And it's nice to know you can enjoy both at the same time. I really want to beat Gumby, and I don't really care if I beat Gumby. And they're both true. They're both true at that moment, at least. There was another time I was running a Philadelphia Marathon, just a year or two, maybe a year after 9/11. And this fella, he must have been a Marine or something, was running shirtless, but he had I think he was shirtless. I don't remember. Could be wrong. But he had a full-sized American flag, and he had this apparatus that, flag carrying apparatus. So he wasn't just holding it up. He had it like around his waist and in this holding thing. But he ran the entire marathon with this big American flag. And then he came around passing me somewhere around mile 25 in a 26-mile marathon, so again, yay. Yay, America. Love it. Love the flag. It's great. And I wasn't going to let this guy beat me. And it was fun because we ran sort of side by side, not hand in hand, but next to each other for the remainder mile, the last mile of the race. And it was great because people were cheering, and I just pretended they were cheering for me. And I knew they weren't. I knew that I was just along for the ride there. But I was like, yeah, thank you. It was good to have that kind of support and motivation to run. Life is a marathon, isn't it? Life is a marathon. I used to work for Tony Robbins, and fire walks are great things. You get yourself in state, you walk across hot burning coals, 15 feet, boom, done. Yeah. It's over. That intense motivation, take massive action sort of thing is great for fire walks. Hard to keep that level of intensity up for a marathon. A marathon is a slog, is a endurance thing. You got to do it every day. Every day. You got to go out and run every day. to qualify to get in good enough shape to run a marathon, you've got to run a little bit, at least every day. Again, the ease process is perfect for training for a marathon. It's perfect for, what you want to accomplish at a marathon. And it's perfect for life. All right. You want to do something every day towards the betterment of who you are and the accomplishment of your goals. And the more that you can do that, the closer you'll get to accomplishing your goals. So get motivated. What spurs you on? What will you gain if you get what you're accomplishing? Get what you are striving for. What will you gain if you get that? How good will that feel? What will you lose if you don't? What will you lose if you don't? Those are great questions for motivation. And you're the one who's in charge of motivating you. Unless you've got some kind of job where some, boss is saying, get going, you slob, cracking the whip and giving you monetary incentives for doing it right or whatever. For most of us, if we're coaches, we don't work for somebody else. We're entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. I mean, maybe you do work for a coaching and collective or something. That's great. Still, within that, we are still solopreneurs, aren't we? So find out what your motivation is. Find out what you're going to do for you to keep going every day and to complete this marathon and do it better than your last time as well. So that's my little soliloquy for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again at the next time. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe wherever that might be and whatever venue you're listening to this on. It helps more than I can tell you, and I really appreciate your being here. Thanks. This has been the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure seeing you again. Hope to see you again real soon. Come back next week when we have another gripping and exciting episode of the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And if you want to, you can find out more about us, each and every one of us, at essentialcoachingskills.com. Thanks.